be sure to follow me on Instagram. There you can hang out with me and talk to me directly.
I don't understand you, Warner Brothers. I really don't. I do not understand you, Warner Brothers. I do not understand how you can do so bad with the Justice League and then do so spectacular with the Joker. By the way, this video is going to have spoilers. The Joker film is amazing. It is amazing. It's everything I thought it would be. It's everything I wanted it to be, right? I didn't want it to be a movie where it was like a take on like Mark Hamill's Joker from Batman the Animated Series. I didn't want it to be a movie where it was trying to recapture the magic of Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight Returns. I didn't want it to be any of that. I wanted it to be a standalone film. I wanted it to be a movie that could stand on its own and just be amazing. And it was. It really was. I did not think Joaquin Phoenix could actually play a good Joker. And then he does. Like, he plays this amazing Joker over the course of the film. And it's fantastic to watch his character just kind of like progress and grow and change. And here's the craziest thing about it. You feel for the guy, right? Like, you look at this guy's story and you're like, this guy's got like the crappiest life. I mean, certainly not the worst life a person could have, but definitely not the best. Like the guy's life is just like a walking, sad, miserable story, right? Like, you know, in The Killing Joke, the idea behind the Joker becoming the Joker was that all it takes is one bad day. And this guy, all it takes is one bad life. And then he ends up becoming the Joker. It was incredible. Okay, so if you want the non-spoilery version of this review, it's simple. Go see it, right? If you go into it expecting Heath Ledger's Batman, or I'm sorry, Heath Ledger's Joker, you're going to be disappointed. That's not what you get, and you shouldn't get that, right? Like that's not what should be shot for here. You shouldn't be trying to duplicate what somebody else did. Just try to, like, you know, do your own thing, and that's really what the Joker movie's doing here. If you're going in here expecting a somewhat of like an origin and deconstruction of the Joker, then that's what you get, and it's really, really good. Just go into it not expecting a absolute comic book origin of the Joker. Really, there really isn't one. I mean, The Killing Joke is as good as you get, but even in The Killing Joke story, Alan Moore's like, it's not necessarily his own origin. Like, it's not even really accurate. People just assume that it's accurate because it's the closest thing we have to an origin, right? And it's the one that DC kind of points to, but they will until somebody else comes along and says, like, this is the definitive origin of the Joker. But nonetheless, right? So anybody who tells you that The Killing Joke is the absolute origin of the Joker, don't believe them, because in the story itself, it doesn't even say that it's the absolute origin. Having said that, getting into like the spoilery stuff, right? Like spoiling the movie. This film was incredible, right? So first things first, you're introduced to the guy. His name is Arthur Fleck, right? And you know, Affleck, unimportant, you know, Affleck. Not to say it's Affleck is an unimportant concept, basically, at least in terms of him being an unimportant guy. You're not going to see any of the characters that you're familiar with from DC Comics, right? So you're not going to see Jim Gordon, you're not going to see Harvey Bullock, and indeed it makes sense because the way this movie plays out, this guy it looks like he's probably in, like Mariah made a good point, it looks like he's in his late 30s, early 40s. And then of course you're going to see the Wayne family. You're going to see Thomas Wayne, you're going to see Martha Wayne, you're going to see Bruce Wayne. And basically, you know, this guy is in his 40s at the time that Bruce Wayne is a little kid, is essentially the idea. The cool thing about this is that it does lead into a movement. It is political in terms of how it's done, right? It is pretty political. It's political in somewhat of a subtle way, but not even a really subtle way, right? Like the whole idea is that it focuses on the rise of this guy becoming the Joker, and not insofar that he's just like, I want to conquer the world and I'm just a terrible person, I want to do bad things. It's really more of the fact that he starts to kind of lose his mind as the movie goes on. Is really the idea behind it. He kind of gets fed up. There's a few things that he does. There's one instance where these guys who were jerks and died a jerk's death, these guys were jerks in a subway, and he basically freaked out. And you know, when they were, you know, drunk and you know, harassing this one chick, she ends up getting up and leaving when he starts laughing uncontrollably, right? Because the idea behind his laughter, there's a couple scenes where you see that, like where he's walking down a hallway and buttoning up his shirt, you saw that in the trailer, is because he has a laugh that he can't control. And so because of that, he basically starts laughing on the subway train, and these guys freak out, and they're like, what, you know, what's so funny? And then he pulls a gun and shoots him. Now, how he gets the gun, I won't go into that, but he pulls the gun and shoots him. From there, it begins a downward spiral into him basically accepting the fact that for the most part, his life is a joke. Like, he doesn't really matter, nobody cares, you know, and anything like that. That his life is a joke. He goes on this downward spiral and ultimately ends up turning into the Joker. The funny thing about this is that aside from that, and maybe one or two other instances, he doesn't really kill anybody. That's kind of the funny thing. Like it's really more focusing on the nature of his character, right? I mean, he kills those three guys. He kills another guy, and then he kills another guy. Like he kills. Well, you directly see him kill probably about 5 people over the course of the movie. One of them is really cool. It's really interesting the way it goes down, right? Because it progresses the story in a new way. But having said that, there are a lot of political tones here, right? There's the tone of you know, people who feel disenfranchised, like people who feel like they're exceedingly poor and their life is really crappy, kind of the wealth gap that you see going on right now, right? The 99% versus the 1%. You know, the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. It really seems to focus on the notion of things being rough for a lot of people. And it's actually done exceedingly well, because it sort of answers the question, what happens when 1, people get fed up with being walked on all the time, and 2, somebody leads them into a place where they feel like they can act and they can basically make their point known without fear of repercussions, basically, with nobody really knowing who they are. It really answers that question exceedingly well. So Joker really becomes more of like a martyr than anything. Not really a martyr, but he becomes more of a symbol than anything else. Yeah, the movie does take place in Gotham City. That is true. You have Thomas Wayne, you have Martha Wayne, you have Bruce Wayne. The story, like the whole history between Thomas Wayne and Arthur Fleck is actually really, really cool. It's really, really awesome. And then one of the things you actually end up learning here is that Arthur Fleck is not his name. It's not the name of the Joker. You never find out what his name is, which really leaves it open for him actually being a man by the name of Jack Napier, which is really, for the most part, again, pointing to the Killing Joke, the identity that most fans just assume is the real name of the Joker. And so, you know, it's cool. Like the movie's fantastic. The movie is where are we? Okay, the movie's mind blowing. It's the best movie that Warner Brothers has made to date. It's the best movie that Warner Brothers, at least in terms of a comic book movie, right? Not in general. It's not the best movie they've ever made of all time, but in terms of a comic book adaptation, it's the best movie they've made to date. And in reality, I think they're going to usher in a new status quo. I think between Venom and between the Joker, between these two guys, they're going to bring in a new status quo. The new paradigm shift of comic book movies is going to be focusing on the Joker, or focusing on the villains, because it's the one thing that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has failed to do so far, is they failed to capitalize on, right? They've always killed their villains, and they never made their villains very intriguing. They never really focused on them. The villains existed to serve the narrative of what makes a superhero, and that's it. But I think the beauty behind what it is that Warner Brothers is hopefully going to figure out, and what it is that Sony's hopefully going to figure out between these two villain films, more or less, that they've made, is that a lot of times the villains are more intriguing than the superheroes, right? Like the Joker, I think, is more interesting than Batman. Magneto, I think, is more interesting than like all the X-Men. You know, Venom, I think, is in a lot of ways more interesting than Peter Parker, especially when you look at the history of the symbiote and different things like that. But I digress here. The villains are in a lot of ways more interesting than the superheroes. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. And I feel like that's going to be the new shift. I think people are going to sit down and say, okay, you know, if Marvel wants to focus on all the superhero stuff, we'll focus on the villains. Like, we'll build up a rogues gallery. Like, we'll build up stories about the villains. Having said that, the movie does work in a way to where, while Warner Brothers did come out and say it's not in continuity, it might be a game they're playing in case it like bombs completely. And they're like, well, it's not in continuity, so it doesn't really matter, you know, whether it does good or bad. We can kind of shuffle it under the rug, and then we can bring a Joker into the new Batman movie somewhere along the line. It's written where it could be that way, but then it's also written to where it could be in continuity. It could go either way. I'd prefer that it be in continuity, to be honest with you guys. The way this Joker was portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, I prefer that it be in continuity. It's a fantastic film, right? It's an amazing film. Does it feel like a comic book movie? No. And I think that's what makes it good. I think that's what makes it so awesome, is DC hasn't quite yet nailed the formula. I'm sorry, not DC, Warner Brothers hasn't quite yet nailed the formula for how to make a comic book movie that feels kind of like a comic book movie, but isn't a comic book movie. They haven't really nailed that. What they have nailed here is the ability to make a movie that feels nothing like a comic book movie, but happens to have a comic book character in it. They've nailed that perfectly. And while that may sound like a bad thing, it's not, because what you get is a villain that you know and love. You get an origin story for this villain, basically, and a really, really intriguing one as well. It's full of twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like a comic book movie. It doesn't feel like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It feels like a tried and true, non-comic book movie. This is amazing. Like, I could see this thing possibly getting an Oscar or being nominated for an Oscar. I don't think it will, but it has that kind of feel to it, like a non-comic book movie that happens to feature a comic book character. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. But yeah, it's an incredible film. It's definitely an incredible film. I would highly suggest that you go check it out. It's great. It is kind of a one-off, right? So it's not one of these things where I would go and see it again, not because I thought the movie was bad, but because there was nothing so captivating that would drive me to the theaters a second time. But you guys need to go see it. Like, you guys have to go watch this movie. It's one of the few times that you've probably heard me say Warner Brothers has made an amazing movie that features a comic book character. If this is the future of the kind of movies they're gonna make, right? Like, if this is, because it's not even about the tone of the film, right? I mean, it is to a degree, but the tone of the Joker was captured perfectly in the tone of the film. If they can do that in future movies, if they can make a movie about a comic book character and capture the tone of that comic book character in that movie while making it feel like you're not watching a comic book movie, you're watching like a non-comic book film, I think they're gonna smash the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If they can go forward with this, and if they can make a Batman movie that fits the tone of Batman, and if they can make a Superman movie that fits the tone of Superman, and Wonder Woman, and the Green Lantern, and Shazam did it great. Shazam did a great job of that. If they can make movies like that fit the tone of the character, as opposed to fitting the tone of the director, which is what you saw with Aquaman. It fit the tone of the director. It did not fit the tone of the character. If you go forward with movies that do that fit the tone of the character, I think DC, I think Warner Brothers could smash the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a lot of ways, especially if they do what the MCU is not doing, which is focusing on villains. They include the heroes, but then also give us villains. Movie's fantastic. You guys have to go see it. With that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.